Hello and welcome back to my journey of building this nucleus up in 2026. It's 2 days now since I split my nuc colony into two, into the white brood box and the brown brood box hives behind me. And as you can see, the bees are flying in both colonies. So it looks like the queen and her half haven't absconded, which is good. But I'm just sort of looking at the numbers in and out of the hives there, and the original colony, so the brown brood box colony hive has looks like it's got significantly more bees flying in and out. So I wonder whether, because the hives are still quite close together, they're still essentially co-located, whether the anticipated bee drift from the brown hive to the white hive hasn't really occurred. And so my plan today is just to sort of move them slightly farther apart, so there's just a little bit of separation between them, and so that maybe some of the flying bees will go back to the white hive. But if indeed they don't, hopefully the original queen that's now in the white hive will be laying quickly, and she's got some capped brood in there with her that will be emerging soon, so hopefully she won't be short on numbers. So I'm going to have a quick look in there today and make sure that the queen is happy in the white hive. And just in terms of bee space in the brown hive, I'm going to make sure that the bees have been in the blue brood box, which is sat above the crown board, where I've got some additional brood frames of stores that I couldn't squeeze into either of the brood boxes. I didn't want to take their stores away. They've obviously worked hard to collect those, and we're about to enter the June gap, so I wanted to keep them available, but being on brood frames it was more difficult. So they are now in the blue brood box is acting as an eek above the crown board on that brown brood box hive. So I'm going to check that they've found that and are using it, and hopefully what they're doing is preferentially using that and bringing it down into the hive to use, or at least using it to replenish the stores from that they're using in the brown brood box. So I just want to make sure they're doing that, but I essentially don't want to disturb the brood nest in the brown brood box too much, because on Wednesday, 2 days ago, I left a really nice looking queen cell that looked like it was going to be imminently capped in there. So it was undamaged, and I was very, very careful to leave just that one. So I don't really want to disrupt that. The queen cell will now be capped, so that queen is metamorphosizing into an adult, and I don't want to risk damaging her or upsetting the colony whilst that's going on, because they're essentially queenless at the moment, and that puts them in a slightly higher state of stress. So I want to just make sure that, as I say, they are using the space available to them in the brood box, but I don't want to disturb them too much. And if they are not using if they're not using that space because they've got a lot of stores and they've got the more numbers, I may indeed give those additional stores over to the white hive, so the original queen, to use, because they've got more blank foundation in there that they need they'll need extra energy to be drawing out. So if the brown hive isn't using them and doesn't need them, then I will transfer across. So now is me assessing their stores as we go into June. June starts tomorrow, I think. So we are entering that June gap, although we are lucky here. We've got quite a lot of wildflower meadow plants that are still flowered and along the watercourse nearby as well. So they won't be totally lacking forage, but it is certainly going to be reduced compared to what it's been like in the spring so far. So need to be mindful of the stores, and that's why I'm going to assess their use of the stores and potentially redistribute it across the two hives. And I also just want to make sure that the original queen now in the white hive is settled. She doesn't look like she's going to abscond. She hasn't, they haven't gone, oh, this is not right for us, making a load of swarm cells and going to leave again. They haven't absconded by the looks of it, so that's a good start. But potentially they might need feeding as well as additional the additional stores. So I can make up some 1-to-1 syrup and give them a feeder if required. So that's what I'm looking at today. Going to have a look inside, not a thorough inspection, but just sort of see how they're getting on, and potentially take feeding action as necessary. So this is the hive setup currently in the apiary before I've done any shuffling around. So on the left hand side I've got a completely white hive, which is a bait hive. It's got some old comb in case I could lure a swarm in, so we can disregard that, but I'm going to shuffle that across to make room for the hive in the middle, which has got just the white brood box in it with the original queen from this nuc, which I'm going to shuffle more to the left, and then that's essentially in the original position of the nuc, and then the hive that has now got the queen cell in is on the right hand side with the brown brood box, and I'm going to move that to the right. So that will give a little bit of separation between the two active hives, and hopefully some of the returning bees might move across to the other hive, and if not, then one of the actions I can potentially take is to shake some bees in from the hive that's got the bigger numbers if the queen in the white brood box needs it. So that'll be something for me to decide when I look inside and actually do a quick inspection. But firstly, I'm going to separate these hives physically just a little bit, and with that there's a 3 foot or a 3 mile rule. So no more than 3 feet unless you're going to move it more than 3 miles, because bees get lost. They do everything by location rather than sort of visual identification. So they don't recognise the actual sort of colours of the hive, for instance. But they recognise the location. So if you move it more than 3 feet, they don't recognise it as theirs and they get lost. So it's small movements in this case, so that I don't totally disorientate the bees. So less than 3 feet. Okay, so that is the 3 hives shuffled somewhat. I've moved the bait hive over to the left hand side of the stand. The white brood box with the original queen and holding the original position of the nuc is now maybe 6 inches farther to the left, and the split with the queen cell in the brown brood box is now a couple of feet to the right. So bit of separation between those 2 active hives, and I'm hoping that that distance is going to give them a little bit of differentiation between the hives, and maybe some more bees will naturally move across and find the old queen, because they will naturally be drawn to her pheromone. So if those 2 hives had been left close together, they might still be able to sense some of that pheromone and be returning to the brown hive, which isn't a tragedy because they're still here and they're still in the apiary. But some of those bees will now probably naturally move over to the original queen in the white brood box hive and make up some of her numbers there as well. So I'm now going to have a quick look inside, see what space the bees are using in each hive. I'm contemplating removing the blue brood box that's got some of the stores in from the right hand hive there, because they might not need it. They've got quite a lot of stores and there's no laying queen, so they can be backfilling any brood space with stores whilst the queen is emerging and going off to mate over the next 3 weeks or so. So what I might do instead is just give them some super frames to draw out. So I've brought a box of super frames down for them to have a look at, just in case I want to do that. And also potentially I might move that brood box over to the white brood box hive with the original queen in case they need some more stores for drawing out the foundation that they've got, or potentially I might decide to give them a 1-to-1 syrup to use. So I'll have a look at that in the next few minutes. So I'm going to have a quick look in the split hive now, so the one that has the queen cell in and has most of the original bees. What I'm going to quickly check here is firstly whether they've used the space above the crown board. So I've got the spare stores that were left over from splitting the brood boxes between the two hives in the space above the ground board, because obviously I didn't want to take their stores away from them, and I want to see if they're using that stores and also using it as bee space, because I've noticed quite a few bees clustered around the entrance as though there isn't quite enough room inside. And what I may do is remove the crown board from between the brood box and the brood box nest to where the stores are, and perhaps if I do take that second brood box away, I may replace it with the super. So keep this, remove the crown board potentially, and maybe swap this for a super full of foundation, just so they've got the space to bee space for hatching brood, because there's some capped brood in the brood box. And also, if there does continue to be a nectar flow, because we do have wildflowers around here that are still flowering, then they can start drawing out those super frames if they need to. So I'm going to just see if they're using this space or not. And my immediate answer is yes, it looks like they are using the space, because there are bees in the roof cavity here, and if I take off the queen excluder, which I was just keeping there, there are bees in this space and they're using the stores. So I may well leave this as it is. I don't want to do a thorough inspection into the main box, because I don't want to damage the queen cell that I've left there, but I will heft this to make sure they've got enough stores. I'm not going to do it one-handed, and I'm just going to have a quick check of how much stores are left in here, because again, it sounds, you can hear the hum, sounds like they're having problems keeping it cool. So if I take out the crown board, it's a bigger space for them to operate in and have to ventilate, so it might be not quite so warm if I remove the crown board and give them a bit of space. So I'm just going to have a look and decide on what to do with that. Okay, so having a look in the split, there's a good number of bees in there. They are using that upper brood box, which has been sat above the crown board, but because of the number of bees, and I still think there's some uncapped brood in there to come out, I am going to take out the crown board and let them have a run across double brood, so they've got the brood space, and they can obviously then use the space for stores, because I've looked at some of these outer frames here, and they are full of stores, so they will be rapidly backfilling the cells left by emerging brood, and they might well run out of space. So I'm going to give them the run over that those 2 brood boxes and give them the space, but I'm happy with the amount of stores they've got. There's a lot in this brown brood box. There's a lot in the brown brood box already, and there is some in the blue, and they obviously can work. When I take the crown board out, they can work that blue brood box as well if they feel inclined to. So just future-proofing myself for the next 2 weeks, give them plenty of space, and hopefully it's not going to be too cold, even if it is a bit mixed weather and rainy. So I'm going to err on the side of caution, give them more space in advance, and let them work that, and then fingers crossed this queen will emerge happily and safe. But if not, and she doesn't go off and mate and come back and she's a good layer, then I'll have a queenless colony that I should be able to requeen. So buying a mated queen, oh, there's a bee on there. Buying a mated queen and requeen that way. So I still have an option. It's just unfortunate timing with being away in terms of being able to manage it a little more sort of closely, as it were. But it needs a couple of weeks for the queen to emerge and go off and mate. So not critical in terms of that, but perhaps the timing might be more critical for the other hive. I don't know. Let's have a look at that one next. So this is the brood box with the original queen in, and actually I don't think I'm as worried about numbers as I thought. There's plenty of bees in here working. There's bees across 10 of those 11 of those 12 frames, and they are, it's full of bees. So I'm not too worried about the split in terms of numbers across the 2 hives as I was. So let's have a quick look and see how they're settling into their new space. So here we are. The good news is my original queen is still here. She hasn't absconded, which I hadn't thought she would, because there's so many bees here. But they look happy. I've looked through, there's some stores. There are some eggs, but there's not loads of eggs. So a bit concerning that she hasn't sort of maybe got back into the rhythm after maybe having that little break, getting ready for swarming before a couple of days ago. So I'm hoping that this is a short-lived hiatus for her in laying. But there are some fresh eggs in there, but in terms of the amount of space that's available, I would expect there to be more. So I think there's some eggs just down here, which you might be able to see. Maybe not. I think the angle's a bit off. There are eggs in those cells, but it's not, for the amount of space that's in that hive in terms of cells, empty cells, like there's not a lot of laying action going on. But as I say, hopefully she's just settling back into it. A bit of a concern, but with me going away, there's not a lot I can do, and all I'm doing really is assessing firstly whether she's laying, and she is, whether they've got enough stores, and I believe they have, and whether they've got enough space. And I think between the new frames of foundation that I've put in the other day, here are some that are still just being drawn out. They've got loads of space they've not touched this one yet, and indeed not touched that one much, I don't think. So so they've got space, they've got stores, and they've got a queen who is laying, although perhaps not as much as I would want her to, but that's up to them. So there's not much more I can do now in terms of managing these guys before I leave. And if you remember, they've got that super on top that they've had access to, and they've already started drawing out the frames on this super, which I'll show you a bit more clearly in a second. So here is the super that the colony with the hive with the original queen in has had for 2 days now, and they have already drawn out this frame. I'd say is probably 80% drawn out, and then 2 others as well are well on their way. So they're drawing out that quite quickly, which is a good sign. She's got loads of space in the brood box to lay in, and also they'll be able to redistribute stores if they want to make that brood nest bigger down there. So again, this is me hedging my bets because I'm away for the next 2 weeks and 10 days, and trying to give them space to do stuff in. So if they end up laying in here, that's fine, because I can always separate it with the queen excluder in a few weeks. So that's my thinking, and we'll see if it works or not when I come back from holiday. But at the moment, a queen, some eggs, brood, larvae and brood, and then plenty of stores and plenty of space. So that's all I can give them right now. Okay, so a quick recap on the pre-holiday inspection there. I split the Nuc colony into 2 hives 2 days ago, and I wanted to make sure that I've left these bees in as good a position as I can, as I won't be able to manage them over the next 10 days. So the original queen in the white brood box, she has enough stores, enough space, because she's got that super on top as well, and lots of brood frames still to draw out. I've seen the queen. She is laying, but not prolifically, so I'm hoping she'll sort that out so that she can keep up her numbers over the summer. And but there are larvae and capped brood in there still from the split the other day. So I'm hoping she's got everything she needs for the next couple of weeks. And as long as she starts laying like soon, then there won't be too much of a break in terms of the bee numbers. And I'm happy that that she has enough bee numbers to do all the work she needs to do. I wasn't sure the other day whether, because it was an artificial split, whether I'd got enough the balance of bees right, but now I'm happy with that. And then the split hive, I've taken out the crown board from between the 2 brood boxes. So now they wanted that bee space. There was bees in there when I first opened it up, so they wanted to use the space. I'd also noticed over the last couple of days there were quite a few bees hanging around outside, so that will hopefully give those bees some room in there to hang out on the frames, and they can work those frames if they need to. I'm happy that they've got the stores, so I checked a couple of the outer frames of the brown brood box, and they are backfilling old brood cells with stores, so they may well run out of space in that brown brood box, and then in which case they might want to start working more in the blue brood box. So they've got plenty of space to do that, and I'm essentially hedging my bets in terms of the weather and the forage over the next week or so. So I think they'll be able to still bring in plenty of nectar on the flow, and I'm hoping that they can give themselves enough stores whilst that queen is developing, emerges, goes off and mates, and then hopefully mates successfully and comes back and starts laying. And I'll be able to sort of check that maybe a week or so after I get back, because it'll have been almost 3 weeks at that point, and then see how they're getting on, see whether she's laying. If she hasn't, then I can take some different action at that point. But fingers crossed, she will go off and mate well, and all will be good. So maybe keep your fingers crossed for me on that one, and we'll see how they get on when I'm back from holiday. All right. In the meantime, hope you have a great time. Enjoy the sunshine whilst it lasts, and we'll speak again soon. Bye bye.